Okay, everybody, happy Thursday. So I have some amazing ladies in front of me, Miss Laura Murata, Amanda Pullman, Andrea Chuli, and Irene Molnar. They were just at the amazing BuiltHow conference, and they saw some of the best keynote speakers. I've already heard a few little nuggets of value and can't wait to hear more. So I am going to kick it off to Laura. Do you want to get us started? Okay, absolutely.
Just to touch base on one of the first things that happened, and you were involved, probably never like this festival, but we completed Bold the week before we went to BuiltHow. And one of the things that our wonderful instructor, Hudson, well, you do this in any Bold, you write the letter to yourself. I'll be completely transparent here. In my letter to myself, I wrote, I would like to be on the stage at BuiltHow, thinking this will never happen. And, they're having.
No, or you were thinking it can happen next year, because we're only a week away from that.
Yeah, so it would never happen. But then that Friday, I got a call from Jolene Snell, who is head of productivity, something for place, sorry, and followed up with a couple texts and had a phone call. Anyways, she asked me if I would be willing to do an agent panel. And I was like, this has got to be a joke, right? Because I literally just wrote this to myself 3 days ago. And I thought, well, that's just crazy. So of course I said yes. And then I freaked out about the trip. And having, a little idea of what they were going to say, ask me. Anyways, we do the interview. It went really well. And I get back into the audience and I'm sitting there waiting for the next set of agents to come on stage, and Ben Kinney walks in, which was a big surprise. The ball cap on, he's very, low key, comes in. Half the people I don't think even knew who he was. And he said, hi, I'm Ben Kinney. I want to welcome you all to the BuiltHow conference. It's going to be our best ever. You're going to see all these amazing speakers. And I just want to say, those people that were just up on stage, you think they're special? None of them are special. Marlo, as I always am, and I said, wow. And he turned and he looked at me and he said, Laura, you're not special, but you're consistent.
Yeah.
Not just that, Fred. And I thought, you know what? He's right. It's so easy to get a little bit of ego or a lot, whatever, about any accomplishments that any of us have had. And the reality is, in this business, it's a humbling business. You get so many no's in any sales career. Your yeses come after many, many, many no's. And we've all experienced that. But when he said that, it just drove back his main point at the conference, which was go do something about it. Go do something about it. And so we talked, of course, about the market and how many people are really struggling. And he said, don't like it? Go do something about it. Don't have enough leads? Go do something about it. Can't close people? Go do something. Whatever it was, the answer was go do something about it. And I find a ton of inspiration in that, because it's really easy, especially after the last 3 years we've been through. Not that they weren't with challenges, but there's no gravy train. No one's coming to save you. And it's a harsh reality, but it is always, I think, our reality in sales, and easy to forget when that rising tide lifts all boats, right? The tide's probably going back out and we have to dig back in to the essentials, being skill-based and then taking the action. And without the action, you can go to all the conferences you want, read all the books you want. It means nothing if you're not willing to go do something about it. So
yeah, overwhelming the message from Ben Kinney, Chris Suarez, Debbie DeGroat, who are actually the ones that put the conference together. And this was the third time they've had the conference. And we went from a room full of about 200 people to over almost 2,000, I think.
Wow.
3 successions. Yeah, it's grown.
And overwhelmingly, the whole concept that we took away from that is mindset. Because the keynote speakers that were presented to us, that we're going to now share some kind of highlights of what we took away, every one of them struggled, failed, got so many no's that I know all of us would have given up with that many no's. There's no way. And the overwhelming part of it was the takeaway that we can't just breathe, we have to get into action. And the struggle is part of the wonderful part of this journey. Like embrace it, embrace the suck. Show up with the best version of who you are. And what is your value? What can you do for others? As Ben said, there are a lot of people pooping in our kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're coming along and that's what we're getting. And we have to all be kind of in the right mindset to know struggle is real, it sucks. However, it's just another market correction, guys. And we've been through a lot, those of us that have been in the industry.
Yeah.
So let's start with some of the keynote speakers because they were incredible and there was quite a lineup. And I'm going to hit it over to Irene because you're going to talk about a very, very impactful keynote speaker.
And to just go off of what Amanda said and Ben Kinney said, one thing that really struck me from Ben, he said, the moment you want to slow down is the moment you need to accelerate. And that really hit home. But Brendan Burchard is a very well-known personal coach. And he actually coaches Oprah, he coaches Usher, he coaches a lot of CEOs around the world. And if you've heard his story is he really had no focus when he was in college. I'm just going to do a condensed version of it. And he followed his girlfriend at college. They broke up. It broke his heart. He ended up getting into a very bad car accident. And he said, if I can get out of this, God, I'm going to turn my life around, and basically did. But he is always so positive, and his message really was, you have to make it happen and you have to always show up. Your job in the morning is to set your day. He talks about meditating first thing in the morning because you're setting your mindset up like, okay, I'm going to have a fabulous day today, and you meditate towards that. The second thing really is if the night before you haven't gotten your to-do list together, get your to-do list together. And then get in and make your calls. We're going to talk a little bit too about where the market's going and what the predictions are, but they're predicting nationally that the sales will be down maybe 6%. Well, you need to if you're doing 20 calls a day, you need to add that back into your calls. So you really should be doing 35 calls a day. And that's to your sphere, that's to, your current clients, that's prospecting. You just need to make the calls. And he talks about 3 C's, and that's clarity, get clarity around what you need to do and what you have to do, and then your competence at it, and just keep going and
Build your skills.
build your skills and, become an expert really in your marketplace. And then be consistent, like set yourself up, like every 9 to 12, every day, I'm going to make my calls, I'm going to get that done, and then I'll do everything else. Yeah.
Get back to basics, which I think
Absolutely.
overwhelmingly we keep hearing. Get back to basics, get back to basics. But Brendan's mindset behind it is, who needs my A game today?
Absolutely.
Because if you think you're struggling, there's probably 10, 12, 15 people you're going to come into contact with that actually have a bigger struggle than you do. So the way that you can show up with value is to show up well for them, even when you're not feeling it.
Yeah. Well, he also talks about, a part of mindset is you build your challenges up for yourself. So if you keep focusing on things like, oh my gosh, I've got this terrible client, I'm never going to get through it, you aren't going to get through it. So you have to have that mindset where, yeah, it's going to be a great day. I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to do it.
And stop telling yourself it's bad.
Yeah.
And stop using the words that ourselves, which are eavesdropping on what we are saying, then put it out there in the world. I mean, we know that from the Bold Law. And I think more and more, this is really important for us to know because, again, we are leaders and we're the ones out there that are telling people what the market is like. And what are they hearing? What is the media hearing? Very negative. There's going to be a recession. There's, prices are going down, doom and gloom, and in reality, it's a different situation, and it varies, I know, but overwhelmingly, we're in one of the hottest seller markets. And we have more buyers than ever doing applications that need to buy because things happen. So we have to put that out there, and we have to kind of counterbalance the negativity that's out there that's driving everybody to be very gloomy. I think really, truly, they came on stage and said, we know it sucks.
And it's gonna be hard, like, we know it's gonna be hard, so.
And one thing he said was you need to show up to work every day with a good attitude, and it's your attitude is defined by your perspective. And, if you say, I'm gonna have a great day, you're gonna have a great day. One thing he talked about is even when you're talking with your clients, like if you've written 11 offers for a client, you can't go down that spiral and say, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? Here we go again. You gotta say, oh, you know what? We just wrote 11 contracts. You know what? Our next contract is the one that's gonna win. And you just gotta keep that positive attitude.
The story of James Dyson, and Ben put this on the screen, was that he made 5,127 prototypes that got rejected and failed until the one that became the Dyson.
Yeah, they sucked.
That's true. And no one's coming to save you, not in this market, no one's. You're not pretty, and you're not finding other ways to show up and succeed, it's all gonna be back on you. All right.
And then, obviously just be persistent. You can't let rejection get to you. You just have to keep going because that next person is going to be your yes. So everything really, again, about him is all positivity, and it's starting with you and how you think every morning.
Irene, do you remember what he said about discouragement being, I can't remember.
I know what it was.
Okay.
He said, the emotional energy of the world is utter discouragement. Most don't even realize it. When there is clarity and you don't do what you are supposed to be doing or supposed to do, you're discouraged. We are all discouraged.
I thought that was so profound. Look what we're coming out of.
Yeah.
3 years of just.
And when he comes on the stage, if you guys know Brandon Bouchard and his growth app, he bounces. He bounces.
He bounced the ear thing right out of his ear.
Yes, he gets you to stand up, but it's so authentic
Yeah.
that it literally changed the feeling in that room. He changed that.
Oh, should we do the air squats and the tiger talk?
Yeah.
I swear to God, it works. We'll do it after off camera.
So he's your job and your job and your job and your job and your job to prevent people from being discouraged. But we all are. It's amazing. So we literally, that was the first keynote to come on.
Oh, yeah.
And what a start, right? We were like super energetic and excited for the next few.
Yeah.
And then it just kept
It
getting
just
better.
kept getting better.
All right, next keynote speaker. Could the man like better?
Yes, the world we are.
Oh my God, who knows this book?
I do.
Yes.
I've heard of.
I've got tons of notes. I don't like writing in books because if I lend it to somebody else, it gets distracting and everyone can have their own experience, but I took lots of notes. He is amazing. His story is amazing. And he was just great. So funny thing is, this is like a business book, and my partner would come downstairs when I was reading it and he saw it. He was like, what is going on? This is just his story, so touching. So if you don't have it, you have Audible, you got it on, so you can hear him talk.
Because he actually does the audible himself, so it's his voice, and it's like, he's like, but,
He is,
velvet.
it really is. It was like a dream. I was
He
like,
he
oh,
is
sorry.
the most well-spoken and articulate leader and writer.
Say the name again, please, the name of the book and the author.
Oh, so it's Unreasonable Hospitality. That's that. If anybody, yeah, and if anybody wants to reach out, you can definitely get details to these too.
Perfect. I put it in the chat.
Yes, perfect, thank you, Still. So, I'm gonna kind of the Cliff's notes version here, but what an amazing story. So, first of all, his dad was his hero, and you see that all through this book, which is amazing. And I think it started, the first piece I have here is, his dad gave him a paperweight, and it read, what would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail? And I think as a kid, that was on his desk or wherever it was, and he always looked at it. So his dad was in the service and hospitality industry his entire life. Will, as a small kid, looking up to his dad, knew that he wanted to do the same thing. So he started, I guess, in the, what was he like, in the accounting or something for one of the restaurants his dad worked for. He eventually got into front of the house, we call it. And then he eventually bought a restaurant, so 11 Madison Park. And he and his partner, who were the chef, really, their whole goal was to become #1 in the world. They wanted the best restaurant in the entire world. And they got told a lot of no's. They went to awards where top 50 were there, and they were called number 50.
And then put the camera on and it was cool. I don't know. Excited and got the F word as he was acting in front of the camera.
So he said, okay, you know what, we got to do different things. So the first thing he did was, he said, this is an entire operation. It's not front of the house and back of the house. It's got to be one cohesive unit. So that was the first thing. He had people from the back working the front, people from the front working the back, so that everybody kind of knew what was going on. He tried to simplify. So again, the less the customer saw, way better. So they came up with systems and signals. And I mean, Irene, you were talking about the jacket, I think, the tag system.
Code check.
Oh, yeah,
Code check.
code check. They,
So versus
ahead.
like somebody standing at the
Oh.
lobby waiting to leave, they would know.
Fumbling further.
Yeah, yeah.
To get their code.
yeah, and same thing with, like, when you walked into the restaurant, they knew when everybody was coming in that restaurant and at what time. And
They looked for their pictures.
they
would
looked
know,
from
yeah.
your pictures, so they knew who you were, and they wouldn't let you come up. They would walk to you and
Yeah.
say, oh, Jill and her husband, you know, we've got a table already for you,
Come
and they,
follow
you know,
us.
just come follow us. So you wouldn't even check in, they would approach you.
Yeah, so,
And same thing with their coats,
Yeah.
like, they would automatically take the coat, they wouldn't give you a, you know, a piece of paper or anything, and as you're coming out, they memorized your face, they memorized what coat you had, and they just automatically
Oh.
gave it to you.
yeah. And some of the cool things they did is they had systems in place where they would clear tables. And they didn't want the customers to see it, so, you know, they'd have a server standing with his hands behind his back carrying probably 45 pounds worth of dishes. And one of his peers would see him and would immediately come up and help him. So they would get those out of the way and away they would go.
The way they ran a team is like in real estate, we have to think about being so unreasonably perfect.
Yes,
In the way that we deliver, which is arguably one of the most important and most special times of a client's entire life.
Yes.
And what can we do to show that respect and that, like, what can we do to make it
Wow,
so
yeah, blowing
perfect?
somebody away.
And how are we transactionalizing things that we don't even think about? So back to, and I'm sorry to be redundant, but you walk into a very posh restaurant, yes, the service is gonna be impeccable, the food's gonna be impeccable. But how about you let it down when the first thing you do is say, and you are, oh,
Wait a
Mrs.
second,
Jackson,
yeah.
okay, okay, oh, you're on table 3. Oh, here's Dan, he'll take bad experience right
Mhm.
there. So they were putting things into place that said, be
Yeah,
the
yeah.
swan, you can only see the grace and the beauty and everything that else that's going on. There's now a wonderful system that you'll never even know existed, but you'll be delighted. And that's what we need to do better in our industry.
And so
That's
they-
huge.
Yeah, so there were some amazing experiences. Another one, and it's all very common, you know, it's time to pay your bill and it's awkward and the server comes over and drops it off and he stands there and you're kind of like, oh, okay, well, I guess you need me to leave. You must need to clear the table. So what they would do is they would bring a bottle of whiskey with 2 glasses or 4 glasses, however many people were at the table, put it on the table and say, we're gonna leave this, you have as much or as little as you want, and when you're ready to pay, you know, your check will be waiting. And so that didn't rush anyone. They figured I could be here. And he said in some cases, people completely finished the bottle. In other cases, they didn't, but at least it was not that, like, get out of my restaurant now. So you take your time because we really value you being here and having this experience with us. Which is amazing. So he would take, you know, they had what we call dreamweavers that would be like listening in the background. So if somebody was sitting at a table, you know, they would say, oh, you know, shucks, there's two I'll give you real quick. I know everyone has a good one too, but we missed our flight to go on our cruise. So now we're here, we're gonna have to make the best of it in this restaurant. So they make reservations, you know, they tell somebody that they missed their flight. what they did in the separate dining room was they set up a little kiddie pool with sand and lawn chairs and buckets of beer. And these people came in for their dinner, and that's what they had, their little cruise destination. And can you imagine the impact that would make on somebody who's like crushed, who just missed their cruise? They did a lot of.
Well, there's a couple that stand out. So the one that really stands out to me was there were some visitors from out of town that came to the restaurant. And someone overheard them say, oh, we hit every single one of the restaurants we wanted, but we never did get a hot dog off the street. And so they ran out the back of the restaurant, they grabbed a $2 hot dog from one of the street vendors, they came back and they cut it into 4, and they put them all on plates with, little fancy ketchup and mustard, and they presented it to them, so
As
they.
one of that
as
dishes.
one of the
Wow.
Dishes,
Dressed it
so
up
they
pretty
were
well.
able to have that, have that experience. And the other one that really stuck out to me was, a lot of times people will go to a nice restaurant to get engaged. And they heard that someone was gonna get engaged, and so someone ran, I guess Tiffany's was pretty close. They ran and got 2 crystal champagne flutes from Tiffany's in a box. And they came back and served them the congratulatory champagne in these Tiffany glasses. And then they washed the glasses and gave them the glasses to take home with them.
And that
as a
became,
souvenir.
and that became
Their signatures.
signature. So that was so well received that they said, yeah, that is an experience that's a once in a lifetime, they're gonna get engaged. So they then made a system of it. They bought them, they had their Tiffany's, and they had them ready. Those are expensive things. When we think in our business, what can we do to surprise and delight or unexpectedly do something? That's really expensive, but yes, it's amazing. But how about people walk in and they're parked in New York and their cars are on the streets and they gotta go feed their meters? Well, they were like, that is happening. We've got a system for that. Good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. Libby. Let me know where your car is parked and what street and what the color is. Thank you very much. And then they feed the meter. So Libby and her husband never have to worry about the car. And even that tiny little touch
It's a huge
just
thing.
went so far.
And so again and again, they would have food editors and people coming in to rate the restaurant. And, their scores were okay, they weren't great, but they did all these activities that, drew people back in, and everybody was talking about this restaurant and what they did. And so at the end of the day, I mean, they did become #1 in the world, and that was amazing,
Which is what they were planning to do.
So, a couple things I'll just leave with you, and then I'll talk maybe again, Amanda's kind of touched on this in our business, but black and white means that you're doing your job with competency and efficiency. Color means that you are making people feel great about the job that you're doing for them. And
Some hospitality is
some of that
color.
stuff is so crazy, yeah. So people will forget, what you do, they'll forget what you said, you probably don't even remember what I just said, that's fine. But they will never forget how you made them feel, and that's how this restaurant differentiated. So many nuggets in this book, and really, like Amanda said, this is a tough time for everyone. The last couple of years was just like picking apples in a basket. Now, now we got a farm, we're not hunting anymore. Now we farm, we plant, we raise things that way. So really, it's what different things, how can you be different, staying in touch with your clients, follow up, all the little things that you're gonna do. That's what we need to change our mindset around.
Will said, gosh, will you please stop putting a bottle of champagne in the fridge for your clients? And will you start thinking about the way the wife turned to her husband when she saw the house and said, oh, honey, it's the perfect area for me to do my yoga and meditation. And the agent brings a yoga mat branded with their favorite candle. And when they move in and walk in, their yoga mat is in wife's favorite place ready for her. Like, think of that instead of just thinking transactionally. Think about what it is that you can do to absolutely delight them, that they'll never, ever forget the way you made them.
Outlet covers, that was another one.
Yeah, I utilized this week. I had a closing with a young woman on Monday, and she and her mother were both on the transaction, so I had them both in Brivity, and I texted the mother and said, you know, I normally like to bring my housewarming gifts when I meet you to deliver the keys today, but I realize I don't really know what Catherine's hobbies are. I know she's a dietitian, so I'm thinking the kitchen is important. And her mother said, well, one of the bedrooms is going to become a library. And I was thinking, am I going to go fill the room with books? I mean, yes, right? So I touched back with the mom and I said, well, clearly I can't bring in bookshelves and books, but I'm going to focus on the kitchen. So what I did was I brought one of our Cutco branded pizza cutters. I went and bought a beautiful tray. I got a large, really beautiful lemon basil candle. I did have a bottle of bubbly still that I was not letting go to waste. And when I usually meet people at the time I'm supposed to meet them. This time I went a half an hour early. I took everything out of the bag. I set it all up on the counter. I did put the bubbly in the fridge. And I had the card perched up on the tray with the candle holding it up. And when they came in, they were truly like,
Yeah.
it wasn't a big deal. It was just, I can't get there 5 minutes before. Now I need to just rearrange my schedule a little bit.
Yeah.
And I could feel the difference between, and I always give people this, between handing a bag to somebody and saying, don't even open this when I'm here. You know, open it on your own time. That's what I would usually do. Thinking they don't want to be on home. She's setting in the cloud, thinking about her, asking her mom, even though I didn't work on the library aspect, you know, I knew where I could.
But it was the thought that went in
Yeah.
behind it, that made it so.
Yeah, and I did the same thing for my nephew who closed.
Well, Marianne, talk about
Yes.
that whole experience. That's huge. That's more recent.
Oh, yes. I have been attending closings. So in my career, in 18 years, I would say I might have gone to 10 signings. One was I was told it really wasn't my place to be there by one of my mentors. So I always just thought, I'm not going to interject myself into that process. But this spring, I had a client who was selling, who'd gone through a very traumatic experience. Her husband passing away, that's why she had to sell her home. I mean, it was very emotional. And I thought, I don't really think I can leave her alone. Had her closing. She just had too many questions about funds and things like that. So we were using this Infinity title. I met her at the title company. Thank God I did, because I don't even know if she would sign the papers that day, as it turned out. But we walked her through all the things, and I got back with Amanda and I said, you know, I went to this person's closing and I realized this is the biggest part of the transaction.
Yeah, we missed that up.
Other than delivering
Every
the
time.
keys. This is huge, whether it's the buyer or the seller. Half the time they don't understand the tax proration. That's the very first thing that I know is always going to come up. So I always, in the past, would preemptively talk them through that and tell them, you'll be fine at your appointment. Here's how this all works. If you have any questions, why are you going to call me? So I've been going to closings, and I'm not the earliest of risers, but my nephew's closing last week was at 8:30 on Friday. And I was like, okay, I'll be there. So I got there and it all went great. And part of it was he had that confidence, but there was no way we were going to let him sign papers for something that wasn't accurate. You know, we went over the Alta settlement and all the closing costs, et cetera. And I just felt like that's more important than even showing up at the day.
Yeah, what an opportunity for us to make a better experience.
Well, and real quick, we talked about that as a group where, imagine, you know, your first time buyer meets, a notary in Panera with this much paperwork, and they're by themselves. I mean, that's gotta be very intimidating, very scary. So what can we do to better facilitate that? And again, like we are forming partnerships, right? Real estate is about referrals and repeat clients. It's not about just one-stop shopping. Here's a transaction and see you later. Good luck, best of luck. So really it's like, what are those things? Where are those pieces that we're missing that we can relay them on? So I'm gonna just jump ahead and say, you have to get this book. Oh my God, the nuggets in here are amazing.
Yeah, I feel like every real estate brokerage, every real estate team is probably going to start adopting this book. This will be the next real estate book.
And I honestly, again, if anybody gets it, wants to chat through it, have like a mini book club, I'm more than happy. I love all of it. So yeah, so yeah, let's know.
Okay, now we're gonna move to ice cream. Jen and Jerry were on stage and they were such an interesting couple. The power of partnership was indeed alive between these two friends. I think we came away realizing that the way they felt about each other they were boys when they first met,
Yeah.
and how they felt about each other.
I'm sleeping on everyone's dorm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, went all the way to where they were sitting in front of us, and you could see that one knew what the other one was saying, and they could finish their sentences. And the love, the pure love they have for each other is a true partnership, because in real estate, partnerships are difficult. I feel like two people that are different coming together, there's always gonna be something that's gonna be difficult, whether it's, decisions, or somebody feels resentful or whatever it is. They never had that problem because they use this mantra that whoever was the most passionate about the subject always got to be the one that won. So if one of them was very, very upset and really wanted to make sure that that thing happened that way, the other one would concede. Because that was the power of how they felt about each other. Because above all in business, their friendship came first. They were so connected, but they were also very kind of odd gentlemen in a way, very different.
Different skill sets.
Nerdy, they were kind of outcasts, they were nerds together. Yeah, half my favorite is half baked, it's not being half baked, it's ice cream that has half baked brownies and maybe not. But they were so entertaining and interesting, and yet they're so ordinary. Over the story of how they decided on ice cream, because it was like, shall we do food? Okay, shall we do bagels or shall we do ice cream? Oh, well, the ice cream machine is cheaper. They were dirt broke poor all the time.
A correspondence course, make ice cream $5.
Yes. To learn how to make ice cream cost them $5.
And they opened in a gas station.
Jerry made the ice cream, that's what he was good at, and Ben was good at the sales and the marketing. And it's funny because Jerry would always concede and say, you're the one that knows how to do that. So he always did that. I think that the power of what they did is the power of community and the power of believing in something very, very passionately. So the believing in something is they believed in that product. And even though nobody had ever done ice cream with chunks and stuff in it, they did it and they became so popular. So popular that they grew out of the places like the old gas station that they could barely afford. They ran on not making a profit, but they always broke even. They always seemed to break even, which meant that they didn't give it up. And they didn't want to give it up because they were passionate about what they did. And even sitting on the stage, their passion showed, didn't it? So even though they had to move to other places, and even though they had to change things, their course of where they were going was that they were very committed to doing this together. When they eventually were able to raise more money for their ice cream, they offered shares to the people that lived in the city.
In the state,
in
they
the-
did an IPO.
So they didn't go like most companies do and let all the richer people buy the shares. They gave it to households because that was the community. That was who they believed in. And those households, they said 1 in 20 bought the stock. And then when the stock went public and did what it did, it blew up their lives. I mean, it changed lives forever for a household. So that was something that was really, really beautiful. What was another thing that was
The
about
most
community?
famous story is as they were growing and they were trying to get into grocery stores, that became their distribution.
No. Yeah. So, when they were trying to get into grocery stores, thank you. And because other people were threatened by them, because there's always gonna be people bigger than you that are always gonna poo-poo you and rip you to shreds because they're jealous. And it was Haagen-Dazs. And Haagen-Dazs said to the retailers, if you take Ben & Jerry's, you won't be able to sell our ice cream. So that was it, because Haagen-Dazs was probably 80% of most grocery stores business. It was the sweet spot.
And Pillsbury owned Haagen-Dazs.
So they decided that even with their limited amount of resources, marketing and money, they started a campaign and they called themselves, "What's the Doughboy Afraid of?" And they ordered a t-shirt and they put out mailing lists and they had a phone number with a recording and they started a huge campaign. And they had letters, they had bumper stickers, the story got picked up in the media, they fought it, they picketed. What's the Doughboy afraid of?
Ben went to Minnesota, where Pillsbury is headquartered, and stood in front of their corporate offices with the t-shirt, "What's the Doughboy afraid of?" with a hand sign with the.
There's
billboard.
pictures of it, and they won.
Right,
So they won. They won because people got behind it. They won because they had a cause that they were so passionate about, that the people that supported them were also passionate about it, and like that grassroots effort made them the winners.
Yeah.
What I love about this story is they are stories of very, very difficult times and then them overcoming. But at the end of the day, the sad thing is sometimes people come into your lives and they are not who they appear to be. And they hired somebody that appeared to be the person that would take them to the next level because they didn't have a clue about raising money. They didn't have a clue about P&Ls, but they trusted somebody, and they kind of got some lucky breaks. Like when they needed to get a loan, they figured out from somebody in passing that you could get this loan because every bank was turning them down. So sometimes you get lucky breaks with really good people, and then you get the wrong people. And this person came in, became their CFO, and actually sold the company from under them, and they couldn't stop it. And they lost the company, Ben and Jerry's, because of that person. And that to me was like the saddest moment on stage, because their passion for Ben and Jerry's and what it stands for, which is why we love the ice cream, we love the ice cream, but we love what it stands for. Don't we love like the community, the values, the locality, all this stuff of why they do what they do, who they give back to, because they care. They're still on Ben and Jerry's payroll. They have no say. They're not involved in any decisions, and you can tell it eats them alive. It eats them alive.
and they show up.
Yeah.
And they're in their seventies.
Yeah.
So basically, they hired this wrong CEO, and it's screwed them. But they always were value-based, and they donated, and they're all about the community, and that's a beautiful thing. When you support your community, the community will support your business. And the important thing to their strong partnership is that they intimately trusted each other.
Yeah.
And when you trust, I believe that partnership will always work. Oh, that was amazing. So that was the Ben and Jerry story, and I love it.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm gonna talk
I don't know
about
how much time.
Jamie. Kern.
It's 2:07. We've
Okay.
got 20 minutes.
Have any of you ever heard of IT Cosmetics? You go into an Ulta or
Yeah.
Sephora.
No, I haven't.
Yes.
That's her brand, and she was the absolute keynote speaker of the entire event. He was it. Everybody was phenomenal. This lady came in, was not being interviewed, just spoke, and she blew me away, and I was in tears a few times. I think what was most impactful, I mean, her story is one of,
You must tell the story, because I don't think a lot of people know her
so
story.
she started, first of all, I would call her a high weight woman, right? So she does not fit, and she has rosacea. And she was kind of finding her way through life and got her dream job as a newscaster. And she's on camera and, the hot lights, and all of a sudden the producer's in her ear saying, "What's wrong with your face?
Something on your face.
Wipe your face.
Wipe it quickly.
Something
Something on
on
your
your
face.
face," and she's
And she's
freaking out.
live.
He knows that it's her rosacea bleeding through the makeup. And as she said, it's like, if you can imagine desert clay trying to crack, right, trying to fix it, there was no way. So this became a repetitive issue for her. So much so that she got the dream, she got that gut feeling that there had to be other people out in the world that had the same problem or different problems that she had, that she was going to start a makeup line. Well, first of all, she tried every makeup line out there, high to low, and nothing worked. So this became her passion. And she eventually quit this job in 2006 and started her IT makeup company, or I'm not really sure if it's IT or it doesn't matter. She started it in her living room, took all her savings and started this company.
And
This-
mortgaged her house and more, I mean, let me see. It was not really a company. It was a dream in her living room.
Yes, I think the overriding thing, I've got 3 pages of notes because I had inadvertently recorded the whole thing, so I got to listen to it again. In preparing for this. So here's the biggest thing she talks about. Setbacks are actually setups. And what she means by that is that we see something as a setback, but it's a setup to propel us forward. But this is so much tied to her whole entire life be built on her gut feeling or her knowing. He calls it her knowing. And what I loved about it is, your head will tell you no, and knowing in your gut and your why. And for every single goal, you have to peel back your why. You have to drill down deeper. She talks about, starting this business, she went at least 3 years with literally taking no pay. No pay. So can you imagine doing a job that for 3 years and not making any money? Most people would come and say to you, I really think it's time, you throw the towel in. You know, this happened for almost 10 years.
Well, she kept going to different cosmetic companies sampling them. And her concept was she wanted a makeup line for everybody, not just certain people.
Skin
So
models.
not just
Magazine,
skinny,
beautiful
skinny
people.
young, and
perfect
so
skin
she
people.
wanted her marketing to be, I'm gonna have several, this is every woman, this fits every woman, this is every person. And when she would go to present it, they would say to her, well, we don't like your marketing,
No, they
you
wouldn't.
can't be on
No,
camera."
they would go, oh, yes, do the presentation. Okay, no, sorry, goodbye.
Well, it was a
No.
little more,
No,
severely
she just was, no.
they'd say,
No.
we love your product. Finally, she asked two significant people for real feedback. And the one who was the investor, who she never actually named. And he was one of her last no's before she did get eventually on QVC. He said to her, you really want to know the truth, basically? And she said, yes, feedback's good. And have you ever had this happen where you ask a client why you didn't get something? Can you give me feedback? And then they can.
No, you want, no, you
should.
should.
And he said, I don't believe that people will buy from somebody of your.
No, somebody
body
that
type,
looks like you.
Your
You're
body
too-
type and weight.
You're basically, you're too overweight and your skin.
I actually wrote down exactly what you said. I just don't think women will buy from you.
Wow.
But she appreciated that he told her what others never did.
Right.
A
And
setup.
it made her just get more
Really.
determined that she was going to make ladies like her, which I would say is a huge representation in the world.
Right.
Have a product that was just for them, because there were a lot of people that she felt needed that.
Yeah.
And the real look at real women was gonna help her sell a product.
So
So
here are her
QVC.
nuggets. Her nuggets are know your
QVC.
why doesn't lie. Then I will. So after being turned down from QVC many years prior, she finally got her shot to go on QVC. And they told her, first of all, you need like $170,000 worth of product in case you sell out. But PS, it's on consignment, and PS, you have 10 minutes. Then she shows up and she finds out that, there's the clock. If it's not going well, you get cut off.
You get cut.
You
So
get
the
gone.
10 minutes goes down to
They
2
told you.
minutes. So you're like,
Right, so she
But not
said
doing it.
she's double spanked, in her dress, literally sweating through her dress. I know, I know how I was double sweating through my
This
spanks.
is where she
From
had
this
to
little
take the
state.
mortgage out to
Yeah.
cover that $175,000 worth of product that she didn't even know she would be able to sell it all.
So she gets up and she does her thing, and they sold out of every single type, color, etc. And this launched her into, I think, over 200 QVC showings, not showings, what we call them, appearances.
which ended up.
She became, her company became so successful, she was in every door, if you will,
Sell it to.
So L'Oreal finally came to her, approached her to buy her business, made her an amazing offer to which she declined. And she said, it was a very fair offer, but it wasn't really what I was totally looking for. So they came back again and they offered her chairmanship of the company and $1.3 billion to buy this company. And the circle of everything is twofold. One is Alan Burke, who was the gentleman that took QVC from selling knives to, luxury, everything in clothing, ended up going to work for her.
Eventually, yeah.
And the investor who told her no and gave her the feedback, called her and said, I was wrong. And she was like, gracious and said, well, thank you. And then she said to us on stage, he was wrong. The greatest thing I took away from the end of her speech, in her talk, she talked about, and Amanda's talked about this, and this is a Keller Williams sort of thing that I've always heard, but you are the sum of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And she went a little further and she said, you have to curate what you are listening to and paying attention to. Think about the hours Brendan Burchard and Chris Suarez also touched on this. Think about the hours that we spend on social media. It's about 4 hours a day for the average person. 4 hours a day on your phone, scrolling, doom scrolling, you know. And she said, I want you to pay attention to how you feel when you see who you follow. And if you don't feel better, mute them. Or just plain, you know, if it's a relative, you know, mute them. If it's somebody else, just stop following it. Talked about curating your energy because our energy is palpable.
Which is right back to what every keynote speaker about the energy and the
He
mindset.
said, I wrote this down, protect the energy around you. It's really hard to turn down the volume of your self-doubt when you surround yourself with people that listen to theirs.
And you
Hmm. That's-
That's what I mean.
Well, what's
Yeah.
awesome is, so, Brendan, who is like a life coach, coached, Oprah and maybe even Jamie. And so Oprah interviewed Jamie, who, you know, became his mogul, first female mogul, and now they're neighbors. So
Yeah.
Oprah
Just
and
bought a
Jamie are
house next
neighbors.
to Oprah.
And,
mean, how
and
is that?
Brendan said, people who are encouraged don't judge a lot of people. People who are discouraged judge a lot of people. The more frustrated and held back you are, the more you judge and blame instead of focusing on yourself. Re-energize your spirit and confidence. There will always be chaos and frustration. You have to own your energy and not give away your power to the chaos and the frustration. A lot of people doing fake work are very discouraged.
Well, one thing that really struck me about Jamie as well, that she said, you don't rise up to the highest level, you fall to the level of what you believe. So you are your own worst enemy. You just have to constantly believe in yourself. And, you know, when you hear a no, I think you already said it, when you hear a no, God gives you a knowing. And you just have to keep following your gut. And if you truly believe in it, then you just have to keep going for it.
Oh, that was so good.
So good.
So what energy will you bring into mastering this new world of real estate? You get to choose that. Most people don't choose and they will struggle. If you haven't chosen the energy, then you haven't started conscious living. Get back to your center.
It was amazing. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Mind blowing.
Yeah.
Gives me
We
chills.
Cannot even tell you how amazing that was.
But she, again, the message is being your authentic self and doing what you believe is right. And one other little nugget she said was, while authenticity does not guarantee success, inauthenticity always guarantees failure. So you just have to be yourself and know what you're going for.
Yeah, so she also wrote a book called Believe It, and all of the proceeds go to charity, so it's not even like she's collecting any money. So I mean, I bought the book. That's
Yeah,
I don't know, but
I had it on
Audible.
And then just because you're realtors, some takeaways. So the top struggles right now are we don't have any kind of predictability in our business, right? Everything is kind of all over the place. It's a tale of two markets. So know what your 5 or 6 lead generators are and use them and find the gaps and fill those gaps and be better at those. Don't go around jumping all over shiny objects. Focus on the simple basics, the ones that work for you.
And it's master one thing before you move on to something else. I think that we all get caught up with, oh my God, all these like things are so amazing, so great. Master one thing and then move on to the next. Master that and move on to the next.
What is not predictable? Build a system, make it predictable. Conversations, you have to be having them eye to eye or ear to ear. You need to do this. You have to make commitments to be around people because your energy is also going to affect them. Never ask Why did someone not do something? Ask what got in the way, ask better questions, and be very focused on leading with great mindset and just helping everyone, because there definitely is a need for us to bring our A game in everything that we do. And that's it, we've sussed out the entire, well, I'm changing the bill forever with my.
There's a couple nuggets, like they, Goldman Sachs spoke, which I thought was interesting, and he predicted there's a 40 to 55% chance of a recession this year. And by 2024, there's a 65 to 75% chance of recession. And this year, they're predicting nationally a 6% drop in prices.
Then predicts that interest rates will keep rising. And then he said, God help us if they reach 8%, I'm staring at Libby, and then they'll start to come down.
Yeah.
This market is going to be tough this year, but it doesn't mean it's tough for us. So opportunistic,
Yeah.
we can actually rise above and show everybody how to get through another correction, that's all it is.
Well, one other statistic they shared, there's what, 1.6 million agents in the country. 22,000 agents do 50% of all real estate transactions, which I thought was fascinating. So, you know, we've got to be within that 22,000. And, you know, they are predicting, you know, people are going to be falling out this year. And we just got to be the best that we can be and be the experts.
And one quick thing, like this again is real. So this just happened this week. Amanda and I met with a client who had an agent previously that they weren't happy with because this agent was just very negative. Like, are you sure you can afford that? Are you sure, like, can you see this? Like, so, I mean, this is somebody's like a major home purchase. This is exciting, you know, this is supposed to be over the top. So I think that's happening too. And I've heard it a couple times where people are looking for different reasons. Mindset and your energy, like that's gonna be your best tool, I think.
You guys, this was phenomenal. I actually have like 5 pages of notes myself. So
Anybody wants to go to BuiltHow, it's gonna be in Scottsdale, Arizona, September 12th. We have discounts for the tickets. It's worth it. Isn't it? It's incredible.
It's Phoenix.
Did I say Scottsdale?
Yeah.
I thought it was
Scottsdale was where we went to the first.
Phoenix.
this September,
Yes, September 12th.
count me
That
in.
happens twice a year, right? So,
Mhm.
yes.
Spring and fall.
That was incredible.
We feel, like, I feel like so excited, like I was back there for another hour.
And honestly, if there's questions from anybody who's watched, about anything specifically we touched on, please reach out. We're more than happy to.
And we will be doing this book club.
Yes.
Oh,
We are
that
ready.
is
We are ready.
such a great idea.
And this is what real estate needs to be.
And the funny thing is, I read this book before I even went to the BuiltHow conference. I wish I could brought this to get his autograph. Like, he was just mind blowing.
Oh.
I know.
But we got ice cream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Good.
very good. Okay, thank
Oh, thank you guys.